Hey guys, this is Illusion PodFix, and today we're going to be reading Jason Todd's Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Week by Slenderboo. This is Chapter 6. A Cell in the Watchtower. Dick didn't remember falling asleep, the last thing he remembered being the sensation of fingers carding through greasy hair. He woke to a body shifting in his arms and a crick in his neck, domino mask pressing into his face uncomfortably. Dick blinked his eyes open, removing one arm from where it was wrapped around Jason to rub the sleep out of his eyes. "Morning, Jaybird," he murmured, poking his younger brother's cheek to check if he was awake. Jason slapped his hand away clumsily, pulling himself up with a small groan. Dick sat up too, one hand coming up to massage his neck. "Identity's dickhead," Jason grumbled in response, snatching his helmet from where it had been placed on the floor. "Hypocrite?" Dick snarked back as Jason slid the helmet onto his head, careful to not snag his domino on the broken edges. "Any idea when they're going to interrogate us?" "No idea. My helmet display's fucked, and without windows, there's no way to tell by the sun's location. Good thing my communicator works just enough to tell time." Dick pulled his communicator off his belt, searching for the display in the upper right-hand corner. "It's 8 in the morning. When do they usually pull you aside?" Jason considers that for a second before replying. "Shifts change at 8, as far as I can tell, which is when they check on me. Chances are they'll just drag us into interrogation then and there." "Not much time, then." Dick knocked his head back, rubbing his face. "What's our story?" "They're going to use the lasso of truth on you, so it's no use coordinating anything," Jason murmured. "Try not to give too much away. It's hard, but not impossible." "Jesus, don't tell me they've been using that thing on you." Dick's brows furrowed with concern. "Only twice." Jason held up his wrist, letting his sleeves fall down to expose red burn wounds that looked like rope burns on steroids. "Apparently, pit chemicals don't mix well with magical ropes." "They what?" he growled. Punching the League was sounding more appealing by the second. "I don't care if you told them your full name, backstory, and family history. Not getting hurt should be your only priority, Hood." "Not on purpose, and I can handle—" Jason cut himself off suddenly. Footsteps. 2 sets. Diana and Clark, I think. Dick stood up, stepping half in front of Jason as the door opened. Wonder Woman and Superman entered, the former wearing a hard glare and the latter seeming more curious than anything. Dick schooled his expression as best he could when he noticed a lasso at her side. "Nightwing, Red Hood," Superman greeted them, voice impassive. "We're taking you out for interrogation." "You going to drug me again, or are you actually not going to use your lasso on me?" Jason snapped, standing up and trying to shoulder past Dick, who instead just pulled him back into his bed to stop his younger brother from falling over. "I already told you I wasn't going to use it until you were healed." Diana's brow furrowed. "Just me, then? Got it," Dick grumbled, looking up to glare at the 2 Justice League members. "So? Are you going to do anything or just stare at us?" Just then he felt a prick in his neck, bringing a hand up to spot a dart sprouting from that point. He snatched the syringe and threw it against the ground, but it was too late. His vision started to slide in and out of focus. "Nightwing, you fucking idiot," was the last thing he heard before his vision went black. The interrogation room. Dick woke up slowly, vision swimming as he came into consciousness. The first thing he noticed was sterile gray walls that were lighter than the cell walls, a dark 2-way mirror to his left, and the sound of a ticking clock above him. His wrists were bound tightly with glowing rope, and even though it didn't burn, the smooth texture of the lasso put him on edge. Jason was sitting next to him, hands and legs handcuffed to the chair. Even with his helmet on, Dick could tell he was pissed. His posture was tense and his fingers twitched as if looking for the trigger of a gun. Finally, his attention rounded to the people in front of him. Wonder Woman, with Superman standing up behind her like a bodyguard. A plastic bag was on the table between them, the inside containing his comm, emergency beacon, lockpick, and a few other gadgets Tim had bestowed upon him. Fuck, he needed those. "Now that Nightwing is awake, we can start the interview," she told Jason firmly, turning her unnerving gaze onto Dick. "What is your connection to Red Hood?" "He's my younger brother," Dick blurted against his will, cursing himself as his lips continued to move. 5 years younger, to be exact. Damn, the lasso felt weird, he thought. 5 years? I figured he was older than you. Wonder Woman quirked her brow, and for some reason the lasso decided that was a question. "Pfft, Little Wing? He's 17, still in high school." He bit his lip the second he said it, but it was too late. "Shut Up, Jason gritted out, turning his head to probably glare at Dick behind his helmet. I'm sorry, a high schooler was running Gotham's trafficking rings? Superman asked, voice suddenly sounding pissed. That wasn't good, was it? How incompetent are we that high schoolers have been running circles around us for days on end? I just like bullying my kidnappers. It's a good source of entertainment. Used to be a hobby before Dickhead here made me stop, he drawled. Can you get on with the interrogation now? Right. Wonder Woman composed herself with a deep breath. How did you break into the watchtower? Combined efforts of my younger brother and cousin, Dick said. Describing Babs as his cousin didn't seem right, but the lass seemed okay with the answer, so he ran with it. Once they registered me in the system, it was as simple as making my arrival invisible and planning when the safest time to get here would be. Okay, the lasso seemed to let him keep things vague. He could work with that, he thought. Did you come here to rescue Hood? No, he answered, unfortunately truthful. I came here to plug in a USB for my cousin, so she could get access to League's computers. I just happened to find him here. This? Wonder Woman held up the exact USB. Luckily, Babs had the foresight to mark with lightning symbol instead of a bat, but them having it still didn't put that much at ease. Yep. He popped the P at the end out of habit. Why did you come here then? Hood's tracker obviously doesn't work in space, so we were going to access your computers to help find him, Dick supplied, technically not a lie, though he felt the lasso heat up against his wrist slightly. It worked perfectly in the weirdest way. God, he was grateful for the existence of half-truths right now. Are we really just going to gloss over the fact that Hood isn't even a legal adult? Superman pinched his brow in frustration. This isn't going to go over well with the rest of the League. Just wait until her dad gets back. He's gonna raise hell. Dick bit his tongue with the second the word slipped out of his mouth. He gets back tomorrow as far as I know. Fuck. This was going to end badly. Well, at least Batman will be back by then to deal with him, Diana grumbled. I think we're done here. Come on already? I haven't even bullied anyone out of this room yet, Jason mock-whined, making Dick chuckle under his breath. Fine, I guess I can settle for making Clark look like he was going to self-confess for most of the interrogation. Technically, I did that, Dick chided him. Close enough. Clark pinched his nose bridge, taking a deep breath. Never mind. Let's just get you two back into cells. Wait, plural? Dick asked, voice pitching slightly upwards as Diana slid off her lasso, and wrapping heavy cuffs around his wrist in place of it. Separate us? I dare you. Jason growled, a bit of that signature Red Hood menace seeping into his voice. It didn't really seem to work on either of the League members, though, Wonder Woman seeming completely uninterested and Superman just furrowing his brows a little. Unfortunately, you'll have to get used to it until Batman arrives. Wonder Woman smirked slightly as she tugged a freshly handcuffed Dick to his feet. Superman had already cuffed Jason's hands, undoing his ankle bindings easily. Dick just managed to get a fleeting glance at the clock on his way out, but all he could see was that it was already 11. Damn it, they were running out of time. The walk back was pretty easy, through winding hallways that Dick already recognized from the first time he'd entered the watchtower. After walking down the winding stairwell for what felt like forever, jumping down it would have been a lot more convenient. They finally made it to the cells, and threw Dick in the bunk bed cell, and Jason in the last non-destroyed one. Great. Do we at least get breakfast? Jason muttered, hobbling over to the bed while trying not to put too much weight on his ankle. It's nearly 12, so it's a bit late for that, Superman pointed out. We'll pull you out individually for another interrogation tonight. Dick just nodded. Nearly 12, huh? So nearly when Tim and Damian would be busting into here. He needed a game plan, since his old one just went out the window with the cell change, and how much time he'd get to bust them out. The minute they were out of the room, he turned to Jason on the other side of the room, who'd collapsed into the bed face down. Okay, the Robins are going to be here and... He tried to check his communicator before realizing it'd been confiscated by the JLA. Damn it. Actually, I don't know, but soon. What do we know about the security in this place? Busting down the walls by force sets off an alarm, but picking the lock works fine. Jason tapped his chin and thought, not much we can do about who's on shift or anyone else in the tower, but I assume you know the way to the Zeta tubes? Yep. Dick popped the pea, pausing for a second to think. Getting up the stairs with your ankle will be hard. I'll live, Jason grumbled. I do know where our stuff is, actually. Turns out, being tranquilized with the same stuff for an entire week, for mandatory checkups and the occasional interview, helps build a tolerance. That didn't sound legit, which meant it was probably a Lazarus pit thing. Meaning I was awake enough to see them pull your stuff off you and put it in a locker in the room over there. Dick couldn't see his brother's face, but knowing him, he was grinning maniacally right now, as he gestured to the door to the right, the one opposite to the exit. You're a lifesaver, little wing, Dick grinned at his brother. And lucky for you, I happen to keep multiple lockpicks on me. He fished a spare lockpick out of his boot, waving the small tool at Jason. In your boot? How did they not find it? Too small. Did they check your boots or something? He responded and then paused. They confiscated your boot knife, didn't they? I used it to pick the lock on the first night. Didn't even make it to the end of the hallway before I got tackled by a green Martian. Apparently, he sensed me leaving or something like that. A for effort, Dick shrugged. Give me a minute to bust us out. It took him barely a minute to break his own lock. Most of the mechanisms a bit broken from him lockpicking it the day before. Jason was different, so it took him maybe 3 or 4 minutes to break him out. Rookie time. Hopefully, Jason wouldn't mention it to Damian, or else he'd never hear the end of it. The door to the evidence room was unlocked, and finding the locker was as easy as glancing at the still unfinished report for the number. Let me. Jason plucked the lockpick out of Dick's hand and hobbled to the locker. Breaking into lockers is one of my favorite hobbies. Please tell me you're not breaking into your classmates' lockers for fun. Dick turned to glare at Jason. Evidence lockers. But those two, now that you mention it. The lock swung open to reveal 2 eskrima sticks, a selection of batterings, and some smoke pellets. Dick snatched those up as Jason moved on to another locker, that one swinging open to reveal his knife collection and a few guns that Dick recognized, the lighter arsenal he usually kept on him for undercover missions. This'll work. He strapped the guns to his side, slipping knife after knife into his pocket. I think we can find your comm, or should we get B to steal it back for us? Let him do it. We don't have time. He snatched Jason's comm out of his locker, checking the time. The thing itself looked as if it'd been partially crushed, but the display still somewhat worked. 12:06. Damn it. Let's go. Dick grabbed Jason's arm and looped it over his shoulder despite his brother's protest, heaving him down the length of the jail and up to the stairs. It took them longer than Dick wanted it to get them both up the stairs, between Jason having to catch his breath every level or so, lest he hurt his ribs more, and his ankle making everything twice as difficult. Dick nearly offered to carry him, but one look at Jason's clenched fist and gritted teeth made him think better of it. He glanced both ways down the hallway and all but dragged his brother down it, pointedly ignoring the door panel he had destroyed the day before. That you? Jason asked, gesturing vaguely to the panel. Yeah, Dick murmured, jumping at a scuttle in the vents as they passed under a ventilation hatch. He was really starting to hate it up here, he thought. Walked into a JLA meeting, slammed one of my eskrima sticks into the panel to escape, and booked it. So you finding me really was one big coincidence, huh? Jason said, huffing a small laugh. B is going to have a fit once he's back. What, between me getting kidnapped, you breaking into the watchtower, and the Robins probably causing problems on purpose right now, he's going to have to explain a whole fucking lot. Shut, I think I hear something. Dick pulled him away from where the Zeta tubes were, where a familiar voice could be heard. Is that? RR? Jason breathed. Fuck. I can explain, Tim said, and Dick could almost imagine the shit-eating grin currently pulling at his features. I got curious what the framed watchtower looked like is all, so I figured I'd come up here to check it out. Where is the child that was with you earlier? Aquaman asked, voice ever regal. What child? He shot back. Must have mistaken. In any case, I still wanted to see your meeting hall, and if possible, where you keep your big gun and computer, so... Not so fast, kid. You're not supposed to be up here at all, Superman said. We already had a break-in not even a day ago, so we're going to have to keep you here for questioning. Weird coincidence. Anyways, God, Dick wished he had the level of nonchalance Tim had. We need to get in there, don't we? Jason muttered, cursing under his breath when his older brother nodded. We're fucked. Wait. Superman's crisp southern accent cut clean through the conversation. I hear something down the hall. Fuck. Dick reeled back behind the wall. Okay, grab a gun. I'm gonna bowl 2 smoke pellets into the room. We get in there, grab Tim, and get out of here. Got it? Dick didn't wait for him to answer, instead immediately hoisting his brother onto his back despite his indignant squawks. Fucking put me down! Dick darted forward, bowling the pellets down the hallway. Jason shot one of them, making it explode into a burst of gray smoke. Dick found Tim quickly, nearly running over him as he scrambled to grab his waist and pull him in what he thought was the direction of the Zeta tube. Nightwing? Tim yelled, scrambling to keep up with his brother. Hey, Red. He grinned maniacally at his brother before gesturing at Jason. Guess what I found? Fucking Jason? Names are, Jason yelled, twisting on his brother's back to shoot the second smoke pellet as it came into view just behind him. Where's Robin? I thought Dickhead here said he was coming with you. About that. Tim didn't get time to finish, getting thrown to the side by Aquaman. Red! Nightwing yelled, scrambling back and nearly dropping Jason. He felt his brother's weight be lifted off his back, and a swirl of air from a blur of red zipping around the room forced the smoke pellets to dissipate. What the hell? He was cut off by Wonder Woman lunging at him with her sword. He barely dodged it, pulling out both her scrumma sticks to fend her off. Why don't we just talk about this? He jumped forward, this time catching her sword between her scrumma sticks and managing to roll away. He needed to assess. Tim was on his feet across the room, fighting Aquaman's trident against staff. He was holding his own, but that wasn't what he was concerned about. Jason was currently being held in the air by Superman, thrashing and fighting as best he could. How did you get out? Wonder Woman growled. She brandished her sword, but seemed hesitant to attack. The battle seemed to be coming to a standstill now, Jason still thrashing, but clearly losing steam. Tim's staff was locked with Aquaman's trident, the older hero managing to pin him against the wall with his own weapon. Spare lockpick, Dick grinned wryly. You're not very good at the whole keep prisoners thing, are you? That's enough. Superman's voice boomed from above. We're taking all 3 of you to the cells. Dick felt cuffs clink around his wrist, Wonder Woman's rough hand circling his bicep to stop him from running away. Shut the fuck up and put me down, Clark! Jason thrashed, wiggling a knife into his hand and unsuccessfully stabbing the man to steel with it. It dropped to the floor, crumpled. Careful! His ribs are still very broken. Flash called up, coming to a stop near Aquaman and handing him a pair of handcuffs. Aquaman nodded his thanks and cuffed Tim, who rolled his eyes in response. And whose fault is that, Barry? Jason shot back with a snarl. You broke his fucking ribs? Tim jerked away from Aquaman, anger filling his voice. What the fuck? I thought you guys were heroes. Get him into a cell, Aquaman, Wonder Woman barked. No, fuck you. Why the fuck did the Flash break my brother's ribs? Tim yelled, lips pulled into a snarl. Brother? Superman echoed, his grip on Jason loosening slightly. At the same time, Jason threw his head backwards, slamming it into Superman's jaw with a sharp crack, in an attempt to get him to let him go. His helmet shattered, pieces falling to the ground under him. Motherfuck! That hurts! He cursed, shaking the red pieces out of his hair. Man of Steel my ass. Steel is softer than whatever the hell you're made of. Just then, Dick noticed something. A small rustle, and the quick glint of metal inside a ventilation shaft. Aquaman had mentioned something about a kid being with Tim earlier. Could that have been... Can we all just agree to talk about this like civilized adults? Dick asked. All of this is just one huge misunderstanding. Just let me explain. Please? How so? Wonder Woman asked, spinning him around to face her. She was wearing a hardened gaze, but looking into her eyes, Dick could tell she was curious how he'd explain all this. He glanced upwards. Again, that flash of metal. Though this time, he could properly hear the rustle of fabric against metal from his position close to the vent. Look, I can explain, but can you please just put down Hood? He can't run on that ankle anyway, and his ribs are fucked. So keeping him held like that isn't good. Dick rationalized as best he could, ignoring Tim and Jason's incredulous stares. He needed to get Jason on the floor, if they had any chance of making a break for it. Broken ankle be damned. Very well. Superman dropped to the ground softly, depositing Jason there easily. The Flash immediately zipped forward, cuffing and holding him in place despite his angry snarl. Now that that's settled, he looked up at the vents with a nod, and all hell broke loose. Firstly, Damian burst out from the ventilation shaft right above Flash and Jason, drawing his sword midair and slashing at Flash with it. He managed to hit the hero's knee, sending him backwards with a howl of pain. "What the fuck?" Flash swore, stumbling off towards the wall behind the Superman. "I will not allow you to get away hurting my brother." Damian dragged Jason away with one arm, brandishing his sword threateningly with the other. "Release Nightwing and Red Robin this instant." "Good timing, Robin." Tim pushed away from Aquaman, taking full advantage of the elder man's shock to slip away to Damian's side. His cuffs clattered against the floor along with his now broken lockpick. Those things were getting itchy. Dick felt the lock of his own cuffs click too, but he didn't do anything while Wonder Woman was still firmly gripping his forearm. "Why do you have so many siblings?" Flash wheezed. "Why are they all walking nightmares?" "Dunno, you'd have to ask our dad that," Tim replied casually. Just then the Zeta tube chimed. "Recognized. Batman, 02. The machine chirped, and in a swirl the Dark Knight of Gotham himself appeared. "What is going on?" Batman almost seemed to growl, his voice filled with a mix of confusion and annoyance. And Dick watched a smirk spread across Jason's face. The vigilante turning his head to make direct eye contact with Wonder Woman and Superman as he spoke. "Oh, hey, Dad." Alright, guys, and that is the end of Chapter 6 of Jason Todd's Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Week by Slender Boo. I hope you guys liked it, and see you next chapter.